the mighty bison among the age-old oak woods, swift eagles over the vast, impenetrable marshlands, tireless wolves, elusive lynx and unpredictable bears in thick forests, flocks of quick-winged birds over the blue-eyed land. All of this is Belarus, a haven of virgin nature preserved by the people for the present and future generations. Springtime, South Belarus, Polessia. The ice is breaking up on the Pripyat, the major river in the Polessia lowland. The Pripyat is nearly 800 kilometers long. Every spring, the melting of the snow causes spectacular floods, turning the landscape into a vast lake for a few months. Perhaps that is why one of the most important migration routes of aquatic birds runs right across it. The Pripyat floodplain becomes a resting place for hundreds of thousands of winged travelers. Geese, ducks, swans, shorebirds, endless caravans of feathered creatures over the boundless waters of the majestic Pripyat. No wonder they call it the European Amazon. But even here, amid the immense borders of water, the Middle Pripyat stands apart as the Europe's largest floodplain preserved in its mature state. In 1999, it acquired the status of a national landscape preserve, Zakaznik. In 2001, the preserve was included into the Ramsar list of wetlands of international importance. The preserve presents all of typical Polessia ecosystems, which have become rare both in Belarus and across the rest of Europe. Mature, seasonally inundated oak groves, floodplain marshes, a variety of water meadows, numerous meanders, rivers and lakes. The presence of these unique habitats ensured the survival of many rare species of animals and plants. The preserve is of exceptional importance for rare and endangered European birds. Among them is the nearly extinct wide-eyed pochard, one of the most vulnerable of our eagles, the greater spotted eagle, the inimitable star of springtime displays, the great snipe, badly affected by the degradation of wetlands, the famous Aquatic Warbler, a mysterious inhabitant of floodplain oak groves, the black stork, the rarely nesting bean and greater white-fronted geese, numerous so far migrating ducks, the widgeon and the gadwall, enigmatic nighttime predators, the eagle owl and the short-eared owl. Where the Pripyat is joined by the Lan, among the flooded oak groves lies one of Europe's largest colonies of wading birds and pelicaniforms. 100-year-old oaks surrounded by bush thicket proved to be a perfect haven for nesting herons and cormorants. hundreds of nests, thousands of birds. No wildlife enthusiast would miss a chance to see this enormous amassment of birds. Such a colony of fish-eating species is the best proof of how extensive Such a colony of fish-eating species is the best proof of how extensive the resources of fish in the Polesia's major river are. After all, each cormorant needs about 300 grams of fish every day. Yet another unique site within the Pripyat floodplain lies just outside the ancient town of Turo. This reserve is known as the Turo Water Meadow. It covers mere 140 hectares. It was set up in 2008 as part of the conservation efforts to preserve a highly diversified natural habitat. Shorebirds and gulls nest on the sandpits amid the thick vegetation, forming unique colonies. In some spots, the nesting density reaches 100 pairs per 1 hectare. Among the inhabitants of these colonies, one can find a very interesting northern species, the Terrex Sandpiper, the stylish European oyster catcher, the tiny ringed plover, the dandy-like ruff. Fighting males with gorgeous plumage is a common enough view in the Pripyat floodplain. Amazingly, each male ruff's plumage is unique. In spring, the river valley's most ancient inhabitants, freshwater turtles, also migrate here to these shallow lakes. In the Pripyat Valley, between the right-hand tributaries Stviga and Uborts, lies the Priebiski National Park. It was set up in 1996 to take after eponymous reserve, which had existed here since 1969. As the reserve was reorganized, it grew significantly in size by incorporating new territories along the Pripyat. The national park has the status of a key ornithological territory of international importance. The most unusual and probably the most important landscapes here are the floodplain forests. They have formed under the conditions of seasonal inundations and are unique to Europe. Of special interest are the Floodplain Oak Groves. They stretch for 50 kilometers along the Pripyat in a narrow band. In depressions and hollows, they alternate with alder groves and water meadows. Every spring these lands are covered by water for the period of several days to over 2 months. Not easily accessible, the forests in the Pripyat Valley display high diversity of rare plant and animal species. Eco-tourists willingly come here to see various owls, from the huge eagle owl to the tiny pygmy owl. several species of woodpeckers, and the largest winged predator, the white-tailed eagle. Numerous smaller rivers run across the park: Staraya Uborts, Svinovod, Utrova, Krushinaya, Korostyanka, Rov. Part of its territory is covered by a system of reclamation canals dating back to the late 19th century. The total length is 280 kilometers. The national park has over 300 floodplain lakes, and when spring comes, up to 70% of the park's territory is covered by water. Belarus has over 20,000 rivers. Their total length is more than 50,000 kilometers. But the Pripyat stands apart from all of them. Despite the changing environment and ecological disasters, its waters still give strength to all the living creatures in this unique land known as Polessia. And here we are in the north of the country. It is the Belarusian Lake District, Poezeria, the world of dark coniferous woods, fast-flowing forest rivers and impenetrable wetlands. Here lies the country's oldest reserve, Berezinski. It was set up way back in 1925. The reserve owes its existence to the beaver. In the first years, the reserve's main goal was to protect and breed game, especially the European beaver. 100 years ago, this species was poised on the brink of extinction. So were many other representatives of the European animal world: the bear, the elk, the lynx, and the deer. Today, Belarus has tens of thousands of beavers. And within mere 100 kilometers from the Belarusian capital city, Minsk, one can observe some of Europe's most rare animals in their natural environment. In many places, brown bears are now an extinct species. In Western Europe, they still inhabit Scandinavia, mountainous regions, Pyrenees, Balkans and Carpathian Mountains. The Berezinski Biosphere Reserve has over 30 brown bears, and encounters with these animals have become quite common. The same goes for the Europe's last wild cat, the lynx. It is here, amid the primeval forests, that wolves dig their lairs. The rarest species of owls and eagles rear their young. Birds are a special pride of the reserve. Among the most important are the Tetronidae, the capercaillie, the black grouse and the hazel hen. In springtime, large lacking grounds bring together up to 20 capercaillie males and up to 30 black grouse males. Abundance of food results in a varied and numerous predator population, which includes the great grey owl and the Ural owl, the short-eared owl, the boreal owl, the golden eagle, the white-tailed eagle, the greater and the lesser spotted eagle. Today, the total number of species inhabiting the Priebiski Reserve stand at over 6,000, and the list is far from being complete. Hundreds of new species await discovery. In most cases, biological species become extinct due to the degradation of their natural habitats. The more active humanity is in claiming and cultivating new lands, the more important protected territories become. Their role in preserving the Earth's biological diversity and its generic pool cannot be overestimated. About 30% of Belarusian lands have some kind of special status. Apart from the Priebiski Biosphere Reserve, the country has 4 national parks, 85 wildlife sanctuaries of natural importance, 345 sanctuaries of regional importance, 305 natural landmarks of national and 544 of local importance. These territories have become home for the rarest, the most vulnerable plant and animal species. Wildlife sanctuaries are of special importance in terms of nature conservation. They are the most common types of protected natural areas in our country. The legislations provided for several types of wildlife sanctuaries. If the goal is to protect rare species, a biological reserve is set up. Landscape protected areas are to help conserve ecosystems or habitats. Hydrological reserves help protect wetlands, lakes and floodplains. Geological reserves conserve sites and objects of inanimate nature. The Yelnia Hydrological Reserve was set up in 1968. Yelnia is the country's largest raised bog. Each such bog is a specimen of tundra landscape that has been moved 1,000 kilometers southwards. It is a world that preserves the memories of large-scale glacier movements of the past. That is why nearly all of the inhabitants here have something northern about them. They are all rare and, as a rule, are listed in the Red Book of Endangered Species. Among them are the restless golden plover, the long-legged whimbrel, the swift European hobby, and the smallest of our trees, the Arctic birch. There are only very few places in Belarus where it can be found. Close to the Yelnia borders lives one of our most mysterious eagles, the harrier eagle, and the restless osprey, the highly specialized fish-eating predator bird. Yelnia's high relevance in preserving biodiversity is further confirmed by its international statuses. It is a key ornithological and botanical territory and a Ramsar site. The Osveysky National Landscape Reserve presents itself as a complex mixture of lakes, woodlands, raised bogs and transition bogs. At the heart of the reserve lies the Osveyskoe Lake, Poazeria's largest breeding ground of both rare and common aquatic birds, the mallard, the common pochard, the coot. The reserve has become home for 3 mammal species listed in the Red Book. The remotest grounds are inhabited by the brown bear and the badger. The last wildcat, the lynx, pursues its prey amid forests and wetlands. The most important bird species living here are the bittern, the common pochard, the golden eagle, the osprey and the black grouse. Wetlands, like floodplains, are a distinct trademark of Belarus. In terms of diversity, size and integrity, Belarusian wetlands are unique to Europe. The area of some of the Belarusian marshlands reaches 200 square kilometers. Though quite different from each other, all bogs fall into 2 large categories: raised bogs and lowland bogs. Raised bogs are covered with a soft blanket of moss. All of the plants inhabiting raised bogs got used to scarce resources available, and it comes as no surprise. Raised bogs have a very thick layer of peat underneath, which often prevents groundwaters, rich in various minerals, from reaching the plant's roots. The primary source of water in such bogs is precipitation. Most Belarusian raised bogs are found in the north of the country, in Poazeria. Lowland bogs, on the other hand, are present throughout river valleys in Polessia. Lowland bogs most commonly lie in the lowest portions of the landscape. They accumulate water rich in mineral salts. It comes from rivers and streams during the springtime floods, from the minerals-rich springs at the bottom of the bogs. This type of wetlands is all but extinct in Western Europe, while Belarus has over 450 square kilometers of them. Lowland bogs are inhabited by a unique bird species, the Aquatic Warbler. It is one of Europe's rarest species. The Aquatic Warbler is the only passerine bird to have been included into the list of globally endangered species of Europe. More than half of its total population lives in Belarus. The largest habitat of this rare bird in Europe is the Sporovsky Reserve. Here, ornithologists count up to 2,120 singing males every year. The Sporovsky Reserve stretches across 4 districts of the Brest region. It is one of the largest lowland bogs in Europe. The reserve is a key ornithological territory and a Ramsar site. It is an amazing wildlife sanctuary where numerous species of plants and animals have found their home. Though they are similar at first sight, all featuring large wetlands and extensive forests, each reserve has a unique character. The most prominent differences can be observed when comparing northern and southern territories. Wetlands and, respectively, reserves in the Vitebsk region, as well as Dobatovskaya Reserve in the Smorgon district, are of glacial origin. Cranberry reserves in the south of the country are found predominantly in the lowland bogs, which appeared due to tectonic processes and the influence of the Pripyat waters. There is a reason why our land is said to have blue eyes. Belarus is a country of many lakes. We have over 10,000 of them. The names of the largest, Naroch, Osveyskoye, Drysvyaty, Chervone and Lokomolskoye, are sure to evoke pleasant memories in anyone who saw them at least once. And each lake is a unique world, home for many animals and plants. But the largest number of lakes is found in Pozeria, the Belarusian Lake District. That is why two of the country's biggest national parks, Narachansky and Braslav lakes, are found here. Apart from preserving nature, national parks exist to share its mysteries. Apart from preserving nature, national parks exist to share their mysteries with the tourists, and lakes are perfect tourist attractions. Braslav Lakes National Park was set up in 1995 to protect the uniqueness of the Braslav group of lakes. The park is situated in the north of Belarus and occupies an area of about 72,000 hectares. In the very heart of the park lies the town of Braslav, one of Belarus's most ancient settlements. The landscape and the lakes are the most attractive features of the park. Here one can see in abundance such rare landforms as kames and eskers. They are the highest points of the landscape. The relief of the Braslav upland was shaped by glaciers. 18 to 20,000 years ago, this territory was covered by extensive ice fields, tens and even hundreds of meters thick. The melting of the ice resulted in the appearance of a large number of lakes, the most typical feature of Pozeria. Braslav district has over 200 lakes. They are united into groups, the most impressive of which is the Braslav group of lakes. The largest lake of the group is Drysvyaty. It is quite shallow and the water warms up well in summer. Drysvyaty, as well as other similar lakes, Nedrovo and Voloso, has a rich population of fish. Yet another very special nature site is the Voloso Yuzna lake. With maximum depth of 40 centimeters, it's the deepest body of water in the park. The lake is known for unusually clean water, which is of drinkable quality. The water transparency here is 7 meters. This lake is a natural laboratory for studying rare and endangered crustaceans and fish. The Nespish Lake is famous for having numerous islands. The Strusto Lake features Belarus's second largest island, Chaichin. The islands at the Braslav lakes are nesting grounds for a number of rare birds, including the bittern and the little bittern, grey grouse, the goosander, the curlew and the short-billed gull. Narachansky National Park emerged in 1999. It stretches across 3 regions: Minsk, Vitebsk and Grodno. 17% of the park's territory is lakes, about 40 in total. Here lies our country's largest lake, Naroch. The lakes are surrounded by virgin forests. The park also features the largest number of pine groves among all Belarusian forests. The area around the Naroch Lake is characterized by diverse animal population. A whole network of ponds and lakes creates favorable conditions for a variety of aquatic animals, fish, near-water terrestrial vertebrate species. It also attracts various aquatic birds during seasonal migrations. Blue Lakes, or Golubye Ozera, Stau has the status of a key botanical territory of international importance. 30 species of plants listed in the Red Book of Endangered Species of Belarus are found here. Among them are the wild tulip, the foxfeet, the lady slipper, the golden locks, the wood anemone and the hellebore. By the way, some interesting natural sites lie very close to our cities and towns. They are very important because of the easy access. One vivid example is the Dubrava National Reserve, situated in the capital city of Belarus, Minsk. As it can be surmised from the very name, which in Belarusian means oak grove, its central attraction are centuries-old oaks. It is indeed a rarity. Oak groves have long disappeared from many European cities. Just try to imagine how exciting it is to see oaks in an urban environment. Minsk citizens can be rightfully proud of their oak grove. In fact, this is not only a valuable natural site, but a monument to our history and folk poetry. The history of the Slavonic peoples is inextricably connected with oaks. The Czechs still have a saying, "Bow if you see an old oak." Under the holy oaks, which were the oldest of trees, the Slavonic people held their most important rites: meetings, marriages, courts. The trees were fenced, and only the priests were allowed in. Here sacrifices took place. Here priests foretold the future. People begged the oaks, "Protect, O ancestor, our crops from the storm, hail and the scorching sun. Guard us, your children, from the enemies." The ground under the oaks was thought to have medicinal qualities. It gave people strength. But why gave? It still does help us improve our health in those places where we have preserved oak groves. There are always many plants and animals in their vicinity, as if they feel protected by the king of trees. By the way, in line with the law, even individual trees can have a protected status. Imagine natural objects unique in their qualities, but not large enough to justify the status of a preserve. Such objects are protected as natural landmarks. Those are centuries-old trees, ancient parks, areas with relic plant species, smaller lakes, wetlands, canals, springs and large boulders. Natural landmarks are categorized into botanical, geological and hydrological. People come to Pozhezhinskoye Forestry in Malorita district of the Brest region to see the real king oak, under which famous Russian military commander Suvorov is said to have rested once. The tree is 46 meters high, about 2 meters thick, and approximately 800 years old. This is the oldest oak in Belarus today. Traditionally, like many other giant things, this oak, which has witnessed many centuries of our history, is supplied with the royal title, the King Oak. Trees differ in the length of their life. That is why protected status is applied only to oaks over 400 years old, pines and ashes over 250 years, and fir trees older than 200 years. Belarus doesn't have too many giant boulders that were once brought in by Scandinavian glaciers. Researchers use them to study the history of our nature. One such amazing boulder is found in the Seninsky district of the Vitebsk region. Just look at that! This is one of Belarus's largest, the Chortov stone of Voronino, over 10 meters long and more than 4 meters high. Today, Belarus has over 300 natural landmarks of national importance and nearly 500 landmarks of local importance. Natural landmark status is not used to protect animals due to their ability to move around. But our legislation provides for specific forms of protection for such territories. They are called specially protected areas. If there's a nest of a white-tailed eagle or a badger's lair in the vicinity of your place of residence, specially protected areas are set up around them. Within 399 meters of such a spot, it is forbidden to cut down trees, for instance. Hundred-year-old pine and fir tree forests, clear birch woods, mighty oak groves preserve the memory of Europe's virgin woodlands. Forest is home to a multitude of animal species. The roe, the wild boar, the wolf. We are familiar with these forest dwellers since our early childhood. Belarusians are proud of their woodlands. They stretch across nearly 7 million hectares. This equals the area of Albanian, Belgian, British, Greek, Danish and Swiss forests taken together. Every year, Belarusian woodlands produce more than 60 million tons of oxygen. Annually, each hectare of woods removes 70 tons of dust from the atmosphere. Kilometer after kilometer, nothing but trees. The Nalibuki Forest is Belarus's and probably Eastern Europe's most massive woodland. It is a country in its own right, a forest equal in size to, say, Lebanon or Kuwait. And it lies within mere 100 kilometers of the Belarusian capital city, Minsk. Here one can find centuries-old oak groves, hornbeam woods, marshy black alder thickets, pine groves and fir tree forests. Across these lands runs the world-famous Nyoman River. Father Nyoman is the name given to it by Belarusians. The Nyoman flows into the Curonian Lagoon of the Baltic Sea, crossing Belarus, Lithuania and Russia in its 1,000 kilometers long journey. By the way, the Nalibuki Forest could have become the first official preserve of the former Russian Empire. Well-known natural scientist Volkswagen, the creator of the famous steppe Askania Nova, used to have a manor in the Nalibuki Forest and planned to organize a preserve to protect local beavers. Unfortunately, World War I ruined his plans. Today, the Nalibuki Forest is included into a national landscape preserve. Finally, here is Europe's oldest woodland, the Belarus Forest. Huge oaks, towering maples, 100-year-old pines. Just imagine, the average age of all trees is 90, while the oldest are 200, 300 and even 400. The Belarus Forest is Europe's only woodland to have over 1,000 centuries old trees. It lies in the southwestern part of Belarus. It is indeed an internationally important territory. The Belarus Forest is shared by Poland and Belarus. Its total area is over 1,500 square kilometers. There are no such forests left in Europe. These unique lands have been preserved thanks to the fact that in different periods of history they served as hunting grounds for Lithuanian, Polish and Russian royalty, kings, tsars and nobility. The forest has been a protected territory since the 16th century. It is the oldest of all reserves. Today it is a national park. In addition, it has the status of a biosphere, that is, of reference quality for Europe, reserve. What's more, it has been put down on the World Heritage List. This means that the forest is so unique as to make it onto the same list with the Moscow Kremlin and the Red Square, Egyptian pyramids and the Great Wall of China. This Europe's oldest wood is unique to the continent in terms of biodiversity. It's home to 59 mammal and 258 bird species, while featuring over 15,000 invertebrates to boot. Also here one finds 3,000 species of mushrooms, 308 types of moss, 330 different lichens, more than 1,000 species of higher plants, 26 types of trees among them. These are record-high figures. Here, in the Tisovik Toe, right in the middle of a reclaimed lowland bog in the Narachansky floodplain, lies the only spot in Belarus where you can still find naturally occurring silver firs. There are only 23 mature trees with rather scarce young growth. 15 hectares of a silver fir grove is all we have left. For the rarest of shrubs, the European ivy, the Belarus forest is its easternmost habitat. The ivy is a real liana, the only one in Belarus. Diversity of plants presupposes a similar diversity of animals. The Belarus forest surprises with the abundance of vegetation. Well, its animal world is no less surprising. Hardwood forests are richest in terms of animal species: the wisent, the European red deer, the roe, the pine marten, the European polecat, the forest dormouse, the green and the middle woodpeckers, the tawny owl, the kingfisher, the oriole, the woodlark, the blue tit, the common blackbird, the robin, the anguin lizard, the smooth snake, the tree frog, and many others. But the primeval nature of the Belarus forest is best proved by the presence of the continent's largest animal, the wisent, or the European bison. In ancient times, they lived here side by side with mammoths and woolly rhinoceros, but those are long extinct, while the wisent is still here. More than 300 wisents live in Belarus today. The wisent is a living symbol of the Belarusian nature, of its beauty, its might and vulnerability. At the beginning of the 20th century, no wild wisents were left to roam the forests. And it was only thanks to human efforts that the wisent eventually returned to its ancient grounds amid the 100-year-old oaks, hornbeams, maples, lindens and ashes. Today, Belarus already has 9 free-living herds of wisents, 850 animals strong in total. These are not just numbers. Behind them are great efforts by many people. Over the last 5 years alone, dozens of unique international nature conservation projects were carried out in Belarus. Among them was the unprecedented in its scale rehabilitation of degraded peat grounds to turn them into fully functional wetlands, setting up of new protected territories, conservation of biodiversity in the most valuable woodlands, development and implementation of long-term management plans for the rarest plant-animal species populations, launch of info centers and educational institutions in the protected territories, and even the CIS first animal subway crossings under highways. Nature needs care and protection, because every living organism, be it a bird or an animal, a plant or a mushroom, a huge bear or a tiny ant, a beautiful stork or a frightening adder, every landscape, whether the Belarus forest or a small pine grove just outside the village, the mighty Berezina or a little forest rivulet, the boundless Narush lake or a non-perennial meander, each of those is unique to the world. Certainly, wisents are not found in every forest, and not every bog has golden eagles or black storks. But any grove, river or meadow is inhabited by thousands of creatures, which come in a dazzling variety of shapes, colors and behavioral patterns. They deserve our attention and our protection. Belarusian wildlife, beautiful and diverse, keeps to its primeval ways, giving us all a chance to partake of the untamed natural splendor. All you need to do to use this chance is take a journey into the heart of this amazing land.